It's an easy excuse for Democrats to blame Trump for the crisis on the border.
There is no shocking the conscience of Trump voters, because this is what he promised, that he would hurt the right people. And so those images that shock us and shock anyone with decent humanity, it's the Roman Colosseum.
Right now, as we speak, there are expecting mothers, nursing moms, elderly folks, vulnerable populations being held in detention unnecessarily, doing permanent damage to children. Literally, Donald Trump's own administration reports are talking about the permanent damage that they're doing to kids.
He's trying to terrorize these immigrant families. He wants to intimidate immigrant families and to chill them from participating in American life. He has to create chaos, create a problem, and then try and be the hero that somehow temporarily solves it.
But many Democrats are experiencing a dramatic shift in their thinking on the issue. According to a new poll in January, only 23% said there was a crisis. Now it's 70%, an astonishing 47-point shift. And to think, just months ago, they viciously mocked Trump for calling the situation at the border a crisis.
This president just used the backdrop of the Oval Office to manufacture a crisis.
President Trump must stop holding the American people hostage, must stop manufacturing a crisis.
The crisis on the border is a manufactured crisis.
They are engaging in what I would call manufactured moral crisis.
This so-called crisis at the border is fake.
This is a crisis of his own making because it was a campaign pledge.
Mr. President, we don't need to create artificial crises. We have enough real crises.
Tonight, the president tries to sell a crisis that the facts tell us does not exist.
All of this whole mess is manufactured. It's a manufactured crisis, a non-crisis at the border that's really not fooling anybody.
This shutdown that he caused by creating a phony crisis actually did cause one danger after another.
But no sign of the national emergency that the president has been talking about. As a matter of fact, it's pretty tranquil down here.
Fake, manufactured, artificial. The only reason that the Democrats think it's a crisis now, Jesse, is because they figured out how to benefit politically from it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to have a conversation actually with Juan about this, just to see his thinking, because I need to know, what is the plan? And we're going to forget about the fact that, you know, it became a crisis after 6 months. We're going to forget the fact that we warned that this was going to happen, that we couldn't handle this amount of illegal alien families, that these are record amounts of illegal alien families coming in, and we don't have the infrastructure of facilities to handle it. We'll put that aside. We'll start fresh, Juan. If an adult male from Central America comes to the border with a minor, and they see a Border Patrol agent, and they just walk right up, what is the plan to deal with them?
At the moment, we send them back.
No, what is your plan?
Oh, I thought you meant what.
No, what is
the
the plan? What is your plan to deal with it?
Well,
how do you handle it?
If someone is at a port of entry.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about they cross the Rio Grande, they enter this country with a minor.
Right.
How would you think the best way to handle and process them would be?
If they are applying for asylum, we have a law in the country that says you are allowed to apply for asylum.
Okay, but then what would you do? So you don't know who they are. They don't have IDs. You don't know if they're related. How do you make sure she's not being trafficked? How do you know they're even related?
I don't know the answer to that, but I guess that what you do is if you're the Border Patrol officer, you ask questions, and also...
But where do you ask those questions?
What do you mean? You would sit and talk to them...
In the middle of the hot desert?
No, Jesse, you have to
take them to a facility.
Yes.
Right, okay. So you believe we need to take them to a facility.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you don't ask them questions together. You have to separate them to make sure their stories are straight, correct?
Yes, briefly,
it's a family, right? Yeah. Well, we don't know.
So
you briefly separate them and then hold them in a detention facility. And then once you ask them questions and you think you can ascertain anything, what do you do with them next?
Well, if they're a family, I think then you have to, if they've applied for asylum, you begin the asylum process. At the moment...
And then what's the process then?
What do you mean? What do you
do with them? What do you physically do with them?
Well, at the moment, what we do is we detain people for a time, and then we let them go.
Okay, so you just let them go into the interior of the country?
No, because people come back for those hearings. People want to be...
Okay, so you talk to them, you let them talk to the agents, and then you release them into the interior of the country, and you wait for an asylum hearing, correct?
Correct.
That's exactly what Trump is doing.
No.
That is exactly what Trump is doing.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. They is exactly what the president is doing, and you're calling him this scoundrel, this bigot, and you agreed with the whole process.
I think you just missed a lot of news.
Unbelievable.
Because
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, because Trump, in fact, has now limited applications for asylum, told people to wait in Mexico. You must have missed a month's worth of news.
Juan, I can't believe you just agree with the president.
No, I just think
it's his exact policy.
Let me just say this. One, Trump exacerbated a difficult situation. There was never an invasion by any military force coming across that border, which is what he was saying.
No one said the military came on.
Now it's a humanitarian crisis. That's why, Dagan, the numbers have gone up in terms of Democrats saying, we have to deal. We've seen the pictures. You've seen the picture of that man dead with his daughter. You've seen the pictures yesterday.
I think Nancy Pelosi got on the horn and sent out a talking points memo to all those members of the media who called it fake and manufactured and said, you idiots, we need to fund humanitarian relief
to this. That's a different situation.
No, it isn't. But Greg, why did they change their tune so rapidly?
Because they realized that they were disgusting hypocrites. I remember how this started, because we've been doing this show for 6 months or 7 months. Began with the incitement of caravans, with an activist push to encourage the use of children as props in a strategy to overrun a system that was previously run by Obama. All those pictures of kids in cages from Obama's time. Never mind. But people did die during that. And while they died, all those people said there was no crisis. So I don't like, when they're talking about the suffering and the drowning that happened now, that makes me sick, because those people were laughing when people were talking about crisis. They lost their seat at the table.
Literally laughing.
Yeah, and look, I mean, you've got a situation here where they've known what the situation is. It's not as though anybody just suddenly became aware of it. The reason the president was elected was because Americans recognized the problem, and we cared about it because specifically that dad and that little girl who died had been encouraged to come.
Exactly.
Because of the rhetoric that we hear about free health care and its sanctuary cities, that maybe they would have been safer at home for a period of time, but the people moving through because of the encouragement of liberal rhetoric, of what Gavin Newsom's saying, about what Obama was saying at the time, is having them undertake these adventures that end up being very dangerous. And now we know, apparently, that people are being, little kids are being rented out on the southern side of the border for people to bring them over. It facilitates sex trafficking and human trafficking and pain and suffering, all of this rhetoric, just because of the politics of the Democrats. This is what we're opposed to. The first people hurt are the migrants who are going to come here and be abandoned by a system that's going to collapse like the one that they're fleeing from. That's why we're wanting this to be dealt with. I think you must have missed that they're trying to escape a very difficult situation in South America and bring their children here for greater opportunity. Has nothing to do with that. And then you've got a dead dad and a dead daughter in the Rio Grande. Yeah. That's not what we've been looking for.
In terms of the burden on the United States, Milt Friedman, the economist, once said you can't have open borders and a welfare state.